On the COVID front, a few things. Also, MSNBC has referred to Harry Reid as a statesman. We're going to be talking about that too. Has there ever been a more partisan politician than Harry Reid, who was on the floor of the Senate and lied, flat out lied, knowingly lied, and said that Mitt Romney has not paid taxes in 10 years? And then years later admitted that he lied and was asked if he regretted it. And he said, well, he didn't win, did he? He's a statesman. Over 25% of America's positive COVID cases are in New York City. I have a question. Do you think this story might be covered somewhat differently if this were, Florida? Cases of the Omicron variant COVID-19 have surged in the country, especially in New York. New York, the city that had all these mandates, and now they have vaccine passports where you have to show that you have been vaccinated to enter a building. Cases are soaring. And even Dr. Fauci says, interestingly, many of the Omicron cases are either without symptoms or minimal symptoms.
And many of the Omicron cases, interestingly, are either without symptoms or minimally symptomatic, particularly the breakthrough infections that you get when people have been vaccinated.
So, this is interesting. Many of the cases are either without symptoms or minimal. Let's hear that again, Dr. Fauci.
And many of the Omicron cases, interestingly, are either without symptoms or minimally symptomatic, particularly the breakthrough infections that you get when people have been vaccinated.
Now, as you know, Aaron Rodgers said that he had been immunized and people assumed that he had been vaccinated when he hadn't been vaccinated, and he had to sit out for a little while. And he says, on the down low, many teams are treating players with the same treatments he had, except they're not telling anybody.
How come in a league where we're seeing, 51 guys on the list yesterday?
100.
There's still zero conversation, at least publicly, around treatment options for people that test positive. I do know behind the scenes, this is 100% true. There are many teams who are using or recommending a lot of the same treatments that I got for their players. So
Dr. Joe Rogan?
There's treatments being talked about behind closed doors, but publicly I don't understand why we can't talk about treatments. And because I think it needs to be not just talked about with the NFL players, but with the rest of the country, that there are ways of, whether it's Delta or Omicron, it seems like there's not a lot of major symptoms. But if you have Delta like I did, there's treatment options that actually help. And if you don't agree with the ones I use, well, let's come up with some other ones. Instead of sticking a person, putting 10 days in an isolation, and not able to see anybody and zero treatment options. To me, that's just, if science can't be questioned, it's not science anymore, it's propaganda.
Now the CDC has walked back the 10 days. Now they're saying if you test positive, it's 5 days. Well, the NFL's chief medical officer is saying that COVID-19 pandemic is being driven by symptomatic individuals. His name is Dr. Alan Sills, told ESPN that the fear of asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic spread, which is the premise behind the lockdowns and mask mandates, he's not seen any verifiable spread this season by people who do not display symptoms. Quote, I think all of our concern about asymptomatic spread has been going down based on what we've been seeing throughout the past several months. We've got our hands full with symptomatic people. Can I tell you tonight there's never been a case with someone without symptoms passing it on to somebody else? No, of course I can't say that. But what I can say to you is that I think it is a very, very tiny fraction of the overall problem, if it exists at all. He continued, clearly, if you want to look at the overall pattern and concern about transmission, it is not being driven by people who have no idea that they are infected and are infecting scores of others. This is being driven by people with symptoms and exposures during the symptomatic period. Dr. Marty McCary of Johns Hopkins said that Omicron is going to be nature's vaccine to the unvaccinated.
Nobody wants anyone to get sick, even if it's a mild or flu-like illness. But now we've got laboratory evidence that Omicron is not infecting the deep lung tissue, the area that gives you severe illness, nearly at the same rate. So we've got laboratory evidence it's mild, population data that it's mild, and bedside observations that it's mild. Omicron, for most of the world who will not get vaccinated, will be nature's vaccine.
Now, because so many Republican governors are responding to Joe Biden saying there's no federal solution to COVID, okay, then why don't you repeal the mandates? And now they're walking back what Joe Biden said just a day ago.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
Now they're putting out a statement of all the things that the Biden administration has done to help states. We've been cooperating. We don't mean there's no federal solution. What we mean is there's no federal solution, except there's no federal solution.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
And the data are showing that if you've had COVID, you're likely protected for life, according to researchers from Washington University School of Medicine. If you had COVID-19, even a mild case, you're likely to be immune for life. More on this when we come back. 888-971-SAG. Harry Reid, a statesman? Really?